ascending still her spirit's upward route, she came into a high and happy space. Here, living center of that vision of peace, a woman sat in clear and crystal light. A low music heard became her floating voice. O Savitri, I am thy secret soul. I have come down to the wounded, desolate earth to heal her pangs and lull her heart to rest. I shall save us if earth consents to be saved.
Good morning. We're reading in Book 7, the Book of Yoga, Canto 4, the Triple Soul Forces, And we've come to page 515. About 13 lines up from the bottom. I don't have the line number, but it starts, I make even sin and error stepping stones. That's where we left off. Page 515, 13 lines up from the bottom. 449 is the line. Page 515. So we just heard Mother reading through this part that we're going to be reading now. She skips over some lines. She just read some of the key lines from this part of the canto. Already Savitri has encountered two other Madonnas, the mother of suffering and grief, and the mother of strength and power. And so to those Madonnas, Savitri said, "You are powers of myself put forth, but I will return and bring back that which you were lacking." So the mother of grief and suffering, she brought compassion, but she couldn't bring the strength to end the suffering. She could only help the beings in their suffering and grief. And the mother of power and strength, she brought a great strength to overcome the hostile forces that besiege mankind. But she lacked the wisdom. So she too could only help a few on their way to the divine. She couldn't help all. So Savitri also told her she will return and bring that wisdom that the mother of strength lacked. And now she's encountered the third soul force, the mother of light and peace. And we are in the description of her now. It began, "O Savitri, I am thy secret soul. I have come down to the wounded, desolate earth." This is at the top of the page, 515. "To heal her pangs and lull her heart to rest, and lay her head upon the mother's lap, that she may dream of God and know his peace, and draw the harmony of the higher spheres into the rhythm of earth's rude, troubled days. I show to her the figures of bright gods, and bring strength and solace to her struggling life. High things that now are only words and forms, I reveal to her in the body of their power. I am peace that steals into man's war-worn breast. Amid the rain of hell his acts create, a hostel where heaven's messengers can lodge. I am charity with the kindly hands that bless. I am silence mid the noisy tramp of life. I am knowledge pouring on her cosmic map. So let's continue, and can we start on this side here? Would you like to read?
Sure.
So what was that line number? 449.
Okay. You read until 444? Oh, it's okay.
I make sin and error. You start there.
Okay. And all experience a long march towards light. Out of the inconscient I build consciousness and lead through death to reach immortal life. Many are God's forms by which he grows in man. They stamp his thoughts and deeds with divinity, and lift the stature of the human clay, or slowly transmute it into heaven's gold. He's the good for which men fight and die. He's the war of right with Titan wrong. His freedom rising deathless from her pyre. His valor guarding still the desperate pass, or lone and erect on the shattered barricade, or a sentinel in the dangerous echoing night.
Thank you. Let's pause there. Just in the lines just before you read were kind of, I think, key to understanding what she represents. So I'll just read that sentence. In the anomalies of the human heart, where good and evil are close bedfellows, and light is by darkness dogged at every step, where his largest knowledge is an ignorance. I am the power that labors towards the best, and works for God, and looks up towards the heights. And then just the first lines that you read, I make even sin and error stepping stones, and all experience a long march towards light. So we see that she works through these dualities of light and darkness and good and evil towards the culmination, the fulfillment, the reconciliation of those dualities towards the divine. So she's a power that leads through even death towards immortal life. Out of the inconscient, I build consciousness and lead through death to reach immortal life. So slowly, through the vicissitudes of their evolutionary journey, she helps, she leads us through all towards the divinity. We saw earlier that she brings also something of the powers of these other Madonnas. Because in that first part that I read, it says that she brings strength and solace to her struggling life. So that's kind of what the other Madonnas had brought, strength and solace. She also does this. She also brings this peace and knowledge and wisdom. And she speaks of God's forms by which he grows in man. She says, many are God's forms by which he grows in man. They stamp his thoughts and deeds with divinity, uplift the stature of the human clay, or slowly transmute it into heaven's gold. So some of these forms of God in our humanity, he is the good for which men fight and die. He is the war of right with tight and wrong. He is freedom rising deathless from her pyre. He is valor guarding still the desperate path, or lone and erect on the shattered barricade, or a sentinel in the dangerous, echoing night. So she leads through this war with evil and darkness towards the light. So let's continue.
Is reading by the restless from her fire. How you understand this?
So the pyre is a funeral pyre. And so he is freedom rising deathless from her pyre. So even in war and destruction, through all of this kind of battle of light with darkness, through all these dualities, she continues in the upward journey towards the divine. So even freedom rises from the pyre, from destruction. Through all of this destruction, these higher divine qualities emerge. They're deathless, they're immortal truths that cannot be extinguished. So I think that's what he's saying. Okay, let's come on this side over here. Tinika, go read next. So we're at the top of page 516, the second line.
Yes, okay. Yeah. He is the crown of the martyr burned in flame, and the glad resignation of the saint, and courage indifferent to the wounds of time, and the hero's might wrestling with death and fate. He is wisdom incarnate on a glorious throne, and the calm autocracy of the sage's rule. He is the high and solitary thought, aloof above the ignorant multitude. He is the prophet's voice, the sight of the seer. He is beauty, nectar of the passionate soul. He is the truth by which the spirit lives. He is the riches of the spiritual vast, poured out in healing streams on indigent life. He is eternity, lured from hour to hour. He is infinity in a little space. He is immortality in the arms of death. These powers I am, and at my call they came.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So again, these are the many of God's forms by which he grows in man. So that's why Sri Aurobindo refers to them as he, God's forms. So he is all of these positive qualities that are working against their opposites in the evolution. And they cannot be quenched. So even the martyr burned in flame rises from that, becomes a saint or a hero to which people across the world look up to as an ideal and model. Or courage, indifferent to the wounds of time. The hero's might, wrestling with death and fate. All of these qualities, the strength that works through all of the terrible vicissitudes of life. And again, we see this quality of wisdom incarnate on a glorious throne, and the calm autocracy of the sage's rule. This is something we don't see too often now, but perhaps in the past it was there, ancient India. The high and solitary thought, aloof above the ignorant multitude. The prophet's voice, the sight of the seer. He is beauty, nectar of the passionate soul. He is truth, by which the spirit lives. He is the riches of the spiritual vast, poured out in healing streams on indigent life. Indigent is poor or impoverished. He is eternity lured from hour to hour. He is infinity in a little space. He is immortality in the arms of death. So we see these divine qualities emerge, continue to survive through all the difficulties of their emergence in the evolution. So she represents these forces.
So the Madonna of light and peace is then a highly developed form, right?
Yeah, like I was saying, she kind of carries some of the qualities of those other Madonnas as well, it seems.
So that means the light is a very important part.
Mm. So let's continue. Would you like to read?
Which line we are?
I don't know, halfway down the page on 516.
Thus slowly I lift man's souls nearer the light, but human mind clings to its ignorance, and to its littleness the human heart, and to its right to grieve the earthly life, only when eternity takes time by the hand, only when infinity weds the finite thought can man be free from himself and live with God. I bring meanwhile the gods upon the earth, I bring back the hope and to the despairing heart, I give peace to humble and the great, and shed my grace on the foolish and the wise. I shall save the earth if the earth consents to be saved. Then love shall at the last unwounded tread earth's soil. Mankind shall admit the sovereignty of the truth, and the body bear the immense descent of God.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So we see that she brings all these great powers into the fight, into the evolutionary ascension of mankind. But she lacks something. And what that is that she explains, but human mind clings to its ignorance and to its littleness, the human heart, and to its right to grief, the earthly life. So while she brings all of these gifts, we find that humanity clings to its limitations. It doesn't want to let go. Very interesting. You can, give light and peace, but if the human being doesn't want them, then what? If we turn aside from the divine, prefer our vexed lives, what can the Madonna of light do? So she says, only when eternity takes time by the hand, only when infinity weds the finite's thought, can man be free from himself and live with God. And she says, I bring, meanwhile, the gods upon the earth. I bring back hope to the despairing heart. I give peace to the humble and the great, and shed my grace on the foolish and the wise. I shall save earth if earth consents to be saved. Then love shall at last unwounded tread earth's soil, and man's mind shall admit the sovereignty of truth, and body bear the immense descent of God. So it's like Vichy can shed her grace and light, but it's not enough. She has to take man by the hand, really, and lead him.
I think the important point is here that earth or the man have to consent to be saved. That is to the light.
Yeah.
Because we have so free will as human beings.
Also, the other point of body, mind, and spirit being included, especially body.
Yeah.
Because in traditional spirituality, the body is nothing.
Yeah.
Not only included in the
So, again, only when eternity takes time by the hand. So only when the divine power, the divine presence comes and literally takes humanity by the hand, takes humanity fully into itself, then, but perhaps only then, love shall at last unwounded tread earth's soil. Then only man's mind shall admit the sovereignty of truth, and only then man's body bear the immense descent of God. When the divine comes down in its supramental force and oneness and wisdom, then these things can happen. I think that's kind of the gist of it. So now, just like with the other Madonnas, there's this perversion of this power that's there in the human heart, and now he will speak. So let's continue. Would you like to read? So we're on page 516, third line up from the bottom.
Yes, freedom, that's starting from there.
Page 516.
Okay. Okay. She spoke, and from the ignorant nether plane, a cry, a warped echo, naked and shuddering came, a voice of the sense shackled human mind. Carried its proud complaint of godlike power, edged by the limits of a mortal's thoughts, bound in the chains of earthly ignorance, imprisoned in his body and his brain. The mortal cannot see God's mighty whole, or share in his vast and deep identity, who stands unguessed within our ignorant hearts, and knows all things because he is one with all. Man only sees the cosmic surfaces, then wondering what may lie hid from this sense. A little way he delves to depths below, but soon he stops, he cannot reach life's core, or commune with the throbbing heart of things. He sees the naked body of the truth, though often baffled by her endless garbs, but cannot look upon her soul within.
Okay, let's pause there. So we're just being introduced to this perversion of the Madonna of light, and we're shown some of his characteristics. He's a voice of the sense-shackled human mind, the human mind subservient to its outward senses, its physical senses. It's hedged by the limits of a mortal's thoughts, bound in the chains of earthly ignorance. So it's our human mind, limited, turned outwards, turned just towards physical things, towards the physical surfaces of existence. And because of that, it cannot see God's mighty whole or share in his vast, deep identity, who stands unguessed within our ignorant hearts and knows all things because he is one with all. Because our minds are shackled, locked up, bound to the physical senses, we cannot see the oneness underlying existence, cannot see the divine who is seated within each of us. Man only sees the cosmic surfaces. And then he says, then wondering what may lie hid from the sense, a little way he delves to depths below, but soon he stops. He cannot reach life's core or commune with the throbbing heart of things. He may look at the body of the truth, but is baffled by her endless garbs, by the different forms, appearances that the truth takes. Again, he's tied to the senses, to the physical appearances of things. This mind of man we're talking about. And so he cannot look upon the soul within, cannot commune with that utter truth of what we are, which is one with the divine, with all things. So we come down here. Would you like to read? Come.
515, right? 4. Then furious for a knowledge absolute, he tears all details out and stabs and digs. Only the shapes content he holds for use. The spirit escapes or dies beneath his knife. He sees a blank stretch, a giant waste. The crowding riches of infinity. The finite he has made his central field. It plans, dissect, masters its processes. That which moves all is hidden from his gaze. His poring eyes miss the unseen behind. He has the blind man's subtle, unerring touch, or the slow traveler's sight of distant scenes. The soul's revealing contacts are not his, yet is he visited by intuitive light, and inspiration comes from the unknown. But only reason and sense he feels are sure. They only are his trusted witnesses.
Thank you. So he's describing our scientific knowledge, search for truth. Seeking for this knowledge, he stabs and digs. He digs into the form, looks at of what it is composed, its molecules and atoms, and dissects the atoms, looking for that ultimate truth, but he keeps looking at the form. Only the shape's contents he holds for use. The spirit escapes or dies beneath his knife. He sees as a blank stretch, a giant waste, the crowding riches of infinity. I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to. Anybody have an idea? The universe?
Like 10 trillion
Yeah.
universes and galaxies.
Yeah. Yeah. Space seems that way, I guess. A blank stretch. Empty. But we don't know what's that space consists of. I mean, I don't know, there is this dark matter or something, right? I mean, maybe it's something is there in that darkness of space that we don't see or know. So we kind of discount it. but yet it's full of things.
They're playing with it now.
Yeah. Mm.
So that's why that's an important step.
Yeah. But it's characteristics of this intelligence is that the finite he has made his central field. Its plan dissects, masters its processes. That which moves all is hidden from his sight. That underlying force, which is behind and in all and is all, that oneness of all things, that essence of all things, he misses.
We can't see it because we are it.
Yeah, he can't, he's blinded by the form, or he's mesmerized by the form. His poring eyes miss the unseen behind.
His poring eyes, it is then what you hear out.
Yeah, poring is kind of studying closely, looking intently at the form, at physical things. The soul's revealing contacts are not his. The soul kind of is that spiritual element in us which feels that oneness of all things, that divinity behind things. So it can have like a contact, an immediate kind of sense of oneness with others, because it's part of that essence. But this intelligence doesn't share that experience. And then at the end he says, and yet he is visited by intuitive light, and inspiration comes from the unknown. So we may get glimpses of a greater knowledge, or even hear a kind of a wisdom coming to us in inspiration. But we don't feel secure in these. They seem too ethereal, too unsubstantial, too insecure. We don't trust them. We trust our reason, we trust our senses, but these intuitions that may come, we don't trust that yet. So we continue, B.
Thus is he balked, his splendid effort vain. His knowledge scans bright pebbles on the shore of the huge ocean of his ignorance. Yet grandiose were the accents of that cry. A cosmic pathos trembled in its tone. I am the mind of God's great ignorant world. Ascending to knowledge by the steps he made, I am the all-discovering thought of man. I am a god fettered by matter and sense, an animal prisoned in a fence of thorns, a beast of labor asking for his food, a smith tied to his anvil and his forge. Yet have I loosened the cord, enlarged my room. I have mapped the heavens and analyzed the stars, described their orbits through the grooves of space, measured the miles that separate the suns, computed their longevity in time. I have delved into earth's bowels and torn out the riches guarded by her dull brown soil. I have classed the changes of her stony crust, and of her biography discovered the dates, rescued the pages of all nature's plan.
Thank you. In the closing of this introduction to this perversion of the Madonna of light, Sri Aurobindo gives kind of a stinging indictment. He says, "Thus is he balked, his splendid effort vain. His knowledge scans bright pebbles on the shore of the huge ocean of his ignorance." So that's how Sri Aurobindo sums up our scientific knowledge. That he says, "Yet grandiose were the accents of that cry, of that Godhead of human intelligence." And then the God begins to speak. And he says, "I am the all-discovering thought of man. I am a God fettered by matter and sense." And so he recognizes his limitations. A beast of labor asking for his food, a smith tied to his anvil and his forge, as if he's just kind of trying to hammer out some truth. And he says, "Yet have I loosened the cord, enlarged my room." And then he lists some of his accomplishments. Map the heavens, analyze the stars, describe their orbits through the grooves of space, which is kind of an advanced view of space based on what? Is that Einstein's discoveries, that gravity is kind of makes folds in space, and that is why, like the planets circle the sun, they're like grooves in a kind of a warped, shaped space. So he's measured the miles that separate the suns and computed their longevity. So he's discovered a lot about his physical universe, but he'll go on describing some more of that. And we'll see there's something that he misses in his search. So let's continue, Ramsha.
The tree of evolution I have sketched, each branch and twig and leaf in its own place. In the embryo, tracked the history of forms and the genealogy frame of all that lives. I have detected plasm and cell and gene. The protozoa traced man's ancestors, the humble originals from whom he rose. I know how he was born and how he dies. Only what ends he serves I know not yet, or if there is aim at all or any end, or push of rich creative purposeful joy in the wide works of the terrestrial power.
Continue.
I have caught her intricate processes, none is left. Her huge machinery is in my hands. I have seized the cosmic energies for my use. I have poured on her.
I'll finish. I have poured on her infinitesimal elements, and her invisible atoms have unmasked. All matter is a book I have perused. Only some pages now are left to read. So after describing kind of the physical forms of matter, here this God of mind starts describing his discoveries of life and evolution. So he sketched the tree of evolution. Each branch and twig and leaf of this tree of evolution he has put in its place. In the embryo, track the history of forms. So by looking at the embryo, we see kind of something of the history of the development of forms, of living beings. And the genealogy framed of all that lives. So the genealogy is like a record of the ancestry of a person or a group. So we're able to trace the ancestry of life and of different species, able to look at how they've developed out of their ancestors, their earlier forms. How the birds developed out of the dinosaurs, or how man developed out of the apes. And then he even goes back. The protozoa traced man's ancestors. Protozoa are these one-celled organisms. So at the very beginning of life on Earth, there were these just only one-celled organisms, which became more and more complex and numerous, and developed eventually into man. And then I have detected plasm and cell and gene. So we've looked into the essential ingredients of life and how it reproduces, and these cells within us which reproduce, and the genes which carry this information forward in the evolutionary development. So, but then he says what he doesn't know. Only what end he serves, I know not yet. Or if there is aim at all, or any end, or push of rich, creative, purposeful joy. I mean, is it just a kind of a random play of forces, of chance kind of processes, survival of the fittest, and it just turns out that certain things survive and certain things die without any purpose, any plan to where it's developing? It's just kind of a random accident that things have turned out the way they've turned out here on this earth? Or is it moving, developing towards some great culmination? Or is it just an accident? I have caught her intricate processes. None are left, or almost none. I've seized the cosmic energies for my use. I've unmasked the invisible atoms. All matter is a book I have perused. Only some pages now are left to read. Let's continue.
I've seen the ways of life, the paths of mind. I've studied the methods of the ant and ape, and the behavior learned of man and worm. If God is at work, his secrets I have found, but still the cause of things is left in doubt. The truth leads from pursuit into a void. When all has been explained, nothing is known. What chose the process when the power sprang? I know not, and perhaps shall never know. A mystery is this mighty nature's birth. A mystery is the elusive stream of mind. A mystery, the protean freak of life. What I have learned, chance leaps to contradict. What I have built is seized and torn by fate. I can foresee the acts of matter's force, but not the march of the destiny of man. He is driven upon paths he did not choose. He falls trampled underneath the rolling wheels.
Thank you. Let's pause there. Again, while boasting of his many discoveries, he also admits his limitations. But still the cause of things is left in doubt. Their truth flees from pursuit into a void. When all has been explained, nothing is known. What chose the process? Whence, from where the power sprang? I know not, and perhaps shall never know. Ultimately, when they get down to the finest particles or energies, moving in the atoms, in the end, though, it doesn't lead to any explanation of the whole thing. Even if we found that basic particle or the set of particles that are there in the atoms, still, what will it explain for us about our human existence and its meaning, its direction? Very little. When all has been explained, nothing is known. A mystery is this mighty nature's birth. A mystery is the elusive stream of mind. A mystery, the protean freak of life. Protean is this kind of changing of forms. What I've learned, chance leaps to contradict. We find that even all these discoveries of science are overturned by new discoveries that come. Nothing is ever certain. Somewhere Sri Aurobindo says, until all is known, nothing is known. Till we really know the oneness of all of the existence, until we know everything, we really know nothing, because our knowledge is just a kind of partial reproduction or a kind of an image of a certain aspect of the truth. It doesn't get at its essence, and it can't see the whole.
There's also a saying which I learned as a child, that the wise man knows a little bit, but he knows that he also don't know.
Yeah, the wise know that they don't know. The foolish think they know everything. My psychology mentor, he illustrated that. He's kind of with a circle, and within that circle, that's what you know. And on the outside is what you don't know. But how does it work? But or that edge of the circle is what you kind of don't know. But as your knowledge expands, that circle expands. So then you realize more and more what you don't know.
Then you're knowing the mystery. And then you plunge into the mystery. And then you get out of dualism. And then you are the mystery. Then you feel the love and oneness. And then you that's what you said.
Yeah.
But sometimes to be happy, even not knowing is necessary, right? Because when Gautam Buddha didn't know about the sufferings of the world, he was happy, and when he came to know about them, he set himself on a voyage.
Yeah. So exactly, what was the point? I didn't follow.
I was saying that in order to be happy, sometimes not knowing is also necessary.
In order to be happy. Yeah. The more we know, the more sometimes we suffer because we see. Yeah. We have to go beyond that. So again, he doesn't see the destiny of man, the march of the destiny of man. And we seem to be driven upon paths we did not choose, and we fall trampled underneath the rolling wheels. As we progress in our development, we're not in control, and we may get trampled under the wheels of our progress, so-called progress. So let's continue. You finished, huh? Artem? My great philosophies.
My great philosophies. I reason guess. My mystic heavens that claims the human soul are charlatanism of the imagined brain. All is a speculation or a dream. In the end, the world itself becomes adapt. The infinitesimal just mocks mass and shape. A love pearls from the infinite's finite mask. Perhaps the world is an error of our side, a trick repeat in each clash of sense. An unreal mind hallucinates the soul, which has stress vision of false reality, or a dance of Maya veils the void unborn. Even if greater consciousness I could reach, what profit is it then for thought to win, or a real which is forever ineffable, or hunt to its lair the bodiless self, or make the unknowable the target of the soul.
Thank you. Let's pause. It's interesting here that Sri Aurobindo looks at two very different views of existence, kind of a scientific view and a spiritual view, that end up in this same kind of dead end, we could say, where nothing is known or has any value. So he talks of the scientific view, the infinitesimals just mocks mass and shape. So as we look deeper into matter, we find that it kind of dissolves. There is no matter. There is like just these kind of random movements of energy, which we can't even predict where they'll be next. These quantum, movements, probabilities. So there's even the matter that we sense, it's unreal in the scientific view. A trick repeated in each flash of sense. And then he speaks of this, or maybe it's just a dance of Maya, veils the void unborn. So ultimately, from the spiritual point of view, all is kind of a nothingness, an emptiness. It's all just kind of an hallucination, a trick of the mind, which doesn't really, the world and the universe, it doesn't really exist from that point of view. So what's the point of searching for that? What's the point of seeking for the unknowable, which is remote from life and our existence here? What good is it to end up in some kind of abstract emptiness or spiritual oneness even that is separate from this universe of life? So both of those kind of approaches end up in a kind of a cul-de-sac or a dead end that don't lead us anywhere. So then he kind of says, so let me just live within my bounds, my limitations. Here, within these limitations, I'm safe. I can map out these, processes of nature, and let me just stick with that. So we need to end today's session. We'll hear a little bit more, the conclusion of this.
she spoke, and from the ignorant nether plane, a cry, a war echo, naked and shuddering, came. I am the mind of God's great ignorant world, ascending to knowledge by the steps he made. If God is at work, his secrets I have found, but still the cause of things is left in doubt. I know not, and perhaps shall never know. Human I am, human let me remain, till in the inconscient I fall dumb and sleep.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.